You are listening to Murder Fluent. Do you like that?
I like it.
Doing things a little differently this time. We're in bed with you guys right now. No video because we're in bed.
Uh-oh.
And, talking about a sexy topic in bed. Jeffrey Dahmer, huh?
Very sexy.
He had a lot of sex, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, he did.
So where do you start from the beginning?
You always start from the beginning. You gotta start from the beginning. He was born in May of 1960, and he was the oldest of two boys and one younger brother. So some people said that he didn't have much attention as a baby, and then other people will say that he was really doted upon when he was a baby. They said his mom was kind of a tense lady. She liked attention and was kind of a hypochondriac. She was kind of just an argumentative individual, depressed. Needed a lot of care from Dahmer's father, Lionel. He was a pretty normal kid, active, until he had like a double hernia surgery when he was 4. He seemed a little less boisterous after that, but, I mean, fairly normal kid. A little timid, a little quiet, but he had friends. Nothing.
He wasn't smashing mice or anything like they normally do?
I mean, he definitely had an interest in dead animals.
Well, see, it always happens.
He collected large insects in a jar. I don't think that's weird. I don't think the insects in a jar is weird. I think that's a normal kid thing to do.
Smashing mice, though.
Smashing mice, that's a
I
new...
bet he smashed mice or two.
You never, I didn't come across that in any research, but you just never know. So it started to get a little weird when he went from collecting bugs to collecting dead animals from the side of the road. Mm-hmm. That gets a little less normal kid behavior, if you ask me. Like to dismember the carcasses and keep parts of them in a jar in the tool shed.
Yep.
Just come back and look at that later.
What do you do, though? Like, let's say one of our kids just decides to start collecting, like, bones in a jar.
Well,
do you
I guess
take them
we
away?
Have a shot.
Because they're just going to want them things more if you
we
take
just
them
have to... You have to, I guess, have a conversation at that point, don't you?
Several, probably. Get a therapist involved.
Well, yeah, I suppose... Yeah. I mean, I suppose it would be different if it was more like a trying to figure out how it all worked. Is a little less creepy than, like, I want to keep this as a symbol of our love forever. Yeah, no, that's a little... But anyway, so I guess there was a time at the house where his father was cleaning out animal bones from underneath the home. I don't know. That, to me, right there is weird. Like, is that a thing that people have to do? That they have to clean animal bones from underneath their house? What?
I don't think we.
I don't know.
We got an accumulation down there.
I don't know. Maybe we should be clean. I don't know.
I'm not doing that.
Nope. They can stay. I don't notice them.
Relics.
But I guess that he said that little Jeffrey really liked the sound that the bones made. Mm. And he remembered that. I don't know if that was in his book or if that was from an interview now, but he said that was...
His book?
Yeah. Dahmer's dad wrote a book.
Oh, what's it called?
A Father's... something, I think.
My son was crazy as hell.
Oh, I don't know. And Dahmer didn't necessarily...
What was his name?
Who?
His dad?
Lionel. And Joyce is the mama. Let me see what the book's title was, but Dahmer didn't necessarily... Yeah, A Father's Story. I was right. From 1994. Dahmer didn't necessarily agree with everything in the book, but, didn't disagree with everything either. But they lived in Doylestown, Ohio.
Yeah.
They moved there in October of 96. And then his baby brother was born in December. So Dahmer got to name him and named him David. And then his dad was working as a chemist in Akron that year. And then a couple years later, they moved to Bath Township, which is not too far from here, actually.
Yeah. The Bath, what's their...
Are they Wildcats too?
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't know. If you're from Bath, get at me.
Yeah, what are you guys? Well, are you Wildcats?
Are you a Rocket? Are you Rockets? Are you the Wild Devils?
I don't think they're the Bath
the little
Rockets.
Devils. The
Bath Rockets sounds like a terrible name.
The Bath Bobcats.
I don't know. Anyway.
I like speculating.
So this is when Dahmer really was starting to want to know more about animal bones. So his dad taught him how to safely bleach and preserve animal bones. Probably thinking he was going to be some brilliant scientist or something someday.
Oh,
sorry, Dad.
I went right to like Native American artwork.
Oh,
you know how people like to.
Well, still, I mean that's better.
I remember a time when I was a kid where certain people just had like a lot of bone art and like Native American things. Like they'd have like antlers with like a deer skull. And like,
yeah, okay.
Like that Midwestern Tex-Mex style. What do you call it?
Yeah, no, right.
Everything had fucking turquoise in it. Everything had an Indian paint not painted on it. I had relatives that would have these kind of...
Yeah, it's kind of strange, especially if they're not Native American. Like,
well, there's like the aesthetic of a
sure
of a Native American. You use them as art.
Yeah. Yee.
It was a different time. It was in the 90s.
A different time.
A lot of things were different back then.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Dahmer goes to high school at Revere High School. He was definitely a loner. He was drinking already at this point. Told a classmate it was his medicine.
And this is when he was in college?
No, this is high school. That's why I said he reached high school and went to Revere High School.
I'm not the brightest. I know a story about him drinking at a place called Bernie's Distillery in Columbus.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they had like a drinking club there. You'd try different beer from all over the world, and you would get like your picture on the wall and your name on the wall, or maybe it's just your name, but evidently his name's on the wall there because he drank so many different kinds of beer.
He was definitely a drinker, and like I said, it started when he was in high school. But he had average grades. He was like I said, he was quiet. He's discovering at this point in time too that he's gay. He's not telling this to his parents though. He did have a brief relationship with another boy at this point, but it didn't really go anywhere. But he was really starting to have these fantasies where he was dominating a submissive male partner. It went from that very quickly to sometimes including dissection in his fantasies.
What a kink.
Yeah, it's hard to find people into that one. One point he wanted to attack a male jogger that he had seen and that he had found attractive, and he even went so far as to hide in a bush one time with a baseball bat ready to hit this guy and do whatever with him. But it just so happened that jogger didn't go through that day.
Damn, lucky jogger.
Good thing his schedule changed that day.
What a thing. What a fucking thing to do. Like, that is... You would think, and I can't speculate on the mental state of a person that would think to do this, but while you're in the bush holding the bat, there's not a moment where you're like, this is kind of a fucked up thing I'm doing here. Like, there's no...
Well, and he says that, he knows that, what he did was wrong. It's just he couldn't... he kills it like a compulsion.
Oh, wow.
So, I don't know how you feel about that, but here's a picture of Dahmer as a 17-year-old boy in high school. He's got some
Nice.
swoopy hair.
That is a nice
He's got a
hairstyle.
hell of a collar on that shirt.
Damn. What year is this, you said?
Let me think. If he
It
was
looks
born,
like an 86 to me. That looks like an 86.
well, he was murdering people in the 80s,
Oh,
so
was he?
yeah. Yeah, well, he started murdering people when he was 18, so that's just
Oh.
a year after this.
Yeah.
So the first guy, anyway. And then there was a big time lapse in between for several years, and then more.
Wow.
But there he is, pretty normal looking dude.
I mean, he's got something in the eyes.
I don't know. Yeah, he doesn't look very happy. So his grades kind of start to drop. He's seeing a tutor. That doesn't really do much. So then it comes to light that his mom had an affair. And so now the parents are getting a divorce. He graduates in 78, so that would have been 77 then. His mom and brother move out of their home, and they go to Wisconsin, but Dahmer stays in this house by himself. So 3 weeks after he graduates, he picks up a hitchhiker named Stephen Mark Hicks, who was almost 19 years old. He told him that they were going to go drink together and listen to some music. Hicks was hitchhiking home. He had gone to a concert, and that was how he was coming home. When Hicks wanted to leave after spending hours with Dahmer drinking, he decided that he didn't want him to leave and bludgeoned Hicks with a 10-pound dumbbell. Then he strangled him to death with the bar of that dumbbell, stripped him, masturbated over his dead body.
Yikes.
Then he dissected him in the basement, and then the next day he buried the remains in a shallow grave in the backyard.
So he hadn't started eating people yet.
No, that was later. He did dig those remains up, though, after a couple of weeks, and stripped the flesh. Yeah, stripped the flesh from the bones to dissolve it in acid, and so he could flush it down the toilet. And then he crushed the bones with a sledgehammer and just literally scattered them in the woods behind the house.
Wow.
I heard online that during the Republican National Convention in 2016...
What was this QAnon shit? What is this?
No, that you could rent out this home where Stephen Hicks was murdered by Jeffrey Dahmer, where Jeffrey lived, and his bones were scattered in a bazillion little pieces, and probably are still some of them out there in that wooded area. You could rent that home for a measly $8,000.
There's a lot of weird stuff about this statement that you brought to the show. Why was the presidential...
I don't know. That's just when the article said that's when it was. So I assume that's like there was like a thing there that people would have been traveling to.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, if I guess if you want, this place is probably haunted. I would say.
I would not go there. That seems like a terrible place to go. Seems like
There's
a
at
bad
least
idea.
one ghost there.
Yeah. Oh, one. Yeah, definitely. Plus all those animals.
You know what though? I bet somebody rented it.
Oh, I don't know. It was $8,000, which seems a little pricey.
Yeah.
But here's a picture of poor Stephen. R.I.P. So this was his only Ohio victim. Pretty laid back guy, looks like your average 70s dude.
He was just a hitchhiker.
Yep, just
and
a
then
kid hitchhiking
you said
home
they
from
went
a concert.
to a... Oh, he was coming from...
He was coming home from a concert, and
what
that's
concert was it? You suppose? The Who?
No, it wasn't the Who. I think I read what it was,
Alice
but I
Cooper,
didn't.
probably.
No, I didn't. I didn't write it down because I didn't think it mattered much. Then you asked me.
I just like to throw a question in there. It's all right. We can speculate on it.
You just speculate. Okay, so 6 weeks later, Lionel returns, and he has a new fiance. And he finds Dahmer alone in the home, and then in August, Dahmer enrolls in OSU.
Go Buckeyes.
Yeah, go Bucks. He's going to major in business.
Oh, what a
That
dreamer.
lasted one term, and it was pretty unproductive because he was an alcoholic. The only course he did well at was riflery.
After you kill somebody, you do not try to enroll in college.
Yeah,
and change.
no problem. Business.
You can. I know
I'm
you can
gonna be a business
change your.
major.
You know, when it comes to things like drug
Well,
addiction,
listen.
you can change your life. You can change your path.
Right, sure.
But once you've already breached the
Snuff
threshold
somebody out
of
and-
murder, and not only murder, but all that other shit you said, where he's flushing flesh down the toilet.
Oh, I
and-
know, that's so gross.
and smashing up bones, you are no longer just a dude who goes to college learning about business. No, you don't.
Right.
You fail. You fail.
I know. Well, he did fail. His overall GPA was a 0.45.
Wow.
Youch. So he dropped out after 3 months. So in January of 79, he enlists in the army, and his dad has kind of encouraged that, you know. Like, this guy needs to get his shit together. Let's send him to the army. So he was trained to be a medical specialist. And I believe it was at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio, Texas. But he was stationed in West Germany in July, where he served as a combat medic, and he was said to be an average soldier. But there were 2 soldiers that had claimed to be raped by Dahmer while they were in the army.
Wow.
One of them said it happened repeatedly over more than a year. And the other claimed to be drugged and raped, which, if you know the story, is what he did, was drug and then rape them. Drug and then kill them or rape them, and not necessarily always in that order, I guess. But so this is a picture of him drunk in the army in the barracks in Germany.
Wow.
I mean, they said he was always trashed. So obviously he was deemed unsuitable for military service. So in March of 81, he received an honorable discharge, and he was sent to Fort Jackson, South Carolina for debriefing. And then he traveled to Miami Beach, Florida, and tried to live on his own there. Yeah, he worked at a deli, rented a room from a motel, really still drinking his life away, and was evicted pretty soon. And so he returned to Ohio in December.
Yeah,
Not December,
go
September,
Bucks.
I'm sorry. Lived with his dad and stepmom for a little bit. But he was really drinking heavy and got arrested and was arrested for being drunk and disorderly 2 weeks after he got home. So he was sent to live with Grandma, and that was in December, and that was in West Allis, Wisconsin. Worked out well for a little bit. He was going to church with Grandma, doing chores. He was looking for a job. He's getting his life on track. He was still drinking, though. He worked as a phlebotomist at a plasma center for 10 months before he got laid off. Then he was unemployed for 2 years. That seems to be a problem. Grandma supported him. So right before he was laid off, he was arrested for indecent exposure at a Wisconsin State Fair park. Apparently he exposed himself to 25 women and children.
Oh my gosh.
And you know what they did?
Nothing?
They fined him $50.
Oh man.
That'll teach you.
You know, even though he did that, there was a long stretch of time there where he wasn't
Murdering
doing
people?
anything. So it makes me wonder, like, if, you know, he can go get a job as a deli clerk or whatever, like, how many people do we know
And then as a
that
phlebotomist.
how many people do we know that have killed one person? Because he's only killed one person, right?
Yeah, so far.
So, like, seemingly he got away with it.
Right.
That probably happens all the time. I just wonder how many people I have talked to, walked past, encountered in any way, who've just killed one person.
Well, I know that I worked with someone that killed.
Oh, really?
Remember, I worked with that woman at Brunson's years ago.
Okay.
And she and her boyfriend murdered an old woman and robbed her
Oh my god.
in a neighboring city here, neighboring town around here. But that was...
Wow. You know what? I
A
totally
long
forgot
time ago.
all about that.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you her last name now.
Well,
or
we
what
can't
the
talk
details,
about that
right?
anyways, but
But
that's
yeah,
crazy.
see, I know I worked with a murderer.
Oh my god.
Do.
Stop killing people.
Right, weirdos. Okay, so January 1985, he's working as a mixer at the Milwaukee Ambrosia Chocolate Factory.
Oh.
Isn't that nice? He's a chocolate factory worker.
It's like
He's
a
Willy Wonka.
Willy Wonka, yeah.
Willy Wonky. He worked 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. 6 nights a week. So, this is about the time that Dahmer is propositioned by a man at the library, and he suggested that, hey, I'll perform fellatio on you. Wink, wink. So Dahmer didn't respond to him, but it started fantasies, and they started to get kind of out of control, and he really, they were definitely, dominance-based fantasies. Started going to gay bars and bathhouses, bookstores.
Bookstores?
Hey, man.
Gay bookstores or just regular bookstores?
I don't know if it's gay bookstores or,
Let's be honest.
I think
It's
they're
probably
all
just as easy.
specifically gay. They're gay places, to hang out, and they're basically for casual sex.
I mean,
So-
yeah. But I'd say, a regular bookstore probably has a good population of gay folks that pop through there.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. But he even at one point stole a male mannequin from a store and used it for sexual gratification. But
Jesus
dang it, Grandma
Christ.
found it, and she's like, "Get this out of here. This isn't gonna happen in my house."
A mannequin?
Yeah.
They don't even have any, holes or
I
anything. I guess
mean,
you make your own holes.
I guess. Ugh.
I'll make a new hole.
God. So he's a regular at these bathhouses. They know him. So, he would start getting angry at these guys during these sexual acts that they're performing on each other.
Get mad at
okay, don't move while we have sex. I don't know. So this is when he starts deciding that he's just going to give them sleeping pills and liquor to sedate them. And then he can rape them. And then they won't move.
Yeah.
Problem solved. Well, bathhouses are okay, you've done this 12 times now. You're not allowed to come back anymore.
He dosed 12 people,
Yeah.
and then they're like,
And then they're like, all right, last straw. No more.
13's an unlucky number, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I don't know. The dude's nuts. So, right after all of this, he decides he's going to steal the dead body of an 18-year-old boy that was, he had seen an obituary for in the newspaper. But the ground was too hard and he couldn't quite get to it. What? What?
This dude is really just sick. He's being driven by his perverse sex.
Yeah,
craze.
it's all sex related. It's all sex related. That's why I was like, yeah, there's no way to not be weird, get dark about all of this. Shoot.
I don't think they didn't put that out in the regular news it was that perverse all the time. I think it was just
I'm
more
sure
they were
in
pushing
that
more
time
the
that it would have been too.
I think I remember just they were pushing the cannibalism part of the whole thing,
Oh, well, I'm sure that was a shock, but he hasn't even started doing that yet. So, this is August of 1986. He gets arrested. He masturbated in front of two 12-year-old boys. He originally admitted to it, but then he said he was just peeing. But there were witnesses that, they're like, no, you weren't.
How many people saw this?
I don't know.
How long did the boys watch? Did they run away? I would.
These details were not included.
Yeah, they need to include them, because I know if I was a 12-year-old boy and I was walking with my buddy and some guy pops out and is like, hey, check this out. I'd be like, no, and we would run the other way. So, I mean, he could only get so far.
Right.
But,
Well, he was charged with disorderly conduct and placed on a year of probation. in March of 87. And then he was supposed to undergo counseling. I don't know that ever happened, though. So then in November, he rents a hotel room at the Ambassador Hotel in Milwaukee. Okay? So this is going to be the next murder here. So this is how many years in between? Like, what is it? 6 years in between, I think. Was it 81 the first time?
You know, these are details that we can probably let go. Yeah.
Anyway, so all right.
It was a span of time.
All right. So it was a while, but
Yeah.
that's just so weird. So he rents this hotel room. He meets 25-year-old Stephen Twomey, Tuomi, Twomey, at a bar. They talk. They like each other. He invites him to come back to his room. And then he said he was just going to drug and rape him. But when he woke up in the morning, he was on top of Twomey, and his chest was, like, crushed in, and he was covered in bruises, and blood was dripping out of the corner of his mouth. And Dahmer said that he was all bruised up, too, like, his fists and forearms were bruised on himself. And he said, but he didn't remember anything from the night before. Suspicious. So...
that is, it seems to me like he smashed the man with his own fists and forearms.
Well, yeah, I think he
bludgeoned him with his own arms.
Beat
and then
him to death,
whenever,
basically.
I like how the detail. He's like, well, yeah, I'm hurt too, though.
Well, like that. I think he was implying that was what had happened. But this is Stephen Twomey here.
Oh, wow.
So
it looks like a real 80s heartthrob there.
Right. So the first two guys are white, but while Dahmer has said that race was never really a factor in who he chose, that it was just who he was attracted to at the time, most of his victims are people of color, which is like, makes you kind of wonder what he did. But so he took Twomey's body out of the... He had to go like buy luggage to put him in. And bring his body to his grandma's house in that suitcase. And he had severed the head, arms, and legs from the torso. And then he filleted the bones from the body and cut up the flesh so he could, handle it and move it around. And he put it in plastic garbage bags.
Jesus.
Put the bones in a sheet and smashed them with a sledgehammer again and threw all the remains in the trash. He said it only took him about 2 hours start to finish to completely dispose of this person's body.
All these things that he's telling... is he just telling people this?
Yeah, he pretty much confessed to all of this, yeah.
Oh, it's just crazy all the details that are out there about this.
Well, I mean, a lot of this stuff, like, he kept things, too. Because he kept the head for 2 weeks in a blanket wrapped up. He kept that. And
probably sticking his wiener in it, too. Sticking his old dirty tallywhacker right in it.
Let me move on, because the next part I was going to say was he boiled it in a bleach mixture to preserve it so he could use it for masturbation.
Yeah. Everything. He's putting that little dirty tallywhacker in everything.
But he said it made the skull too brittle, so he crushed it and threw it away, too.
Oh, yeah, can't fuck it.
So this is when he starts to actively seek out his victims in gay bars now. Before, when, Twomey was, an accident, I don't know. Or
whoops.
A lapse of memory or something.
Whoops, I cut that motherfucker all the way up into little pieces and did all this other shit with it.
Well, obviously not that part, but... Anyway, he is generally taking them home to his grandma's house to drug them and then strangle them.
Where's Grandma in all this?
Grandma must be hard of hearing, or I don't know. I mean, she knows he's bringing men home. So, I don't know. As far as I'm concerned,
yeah,
she should be in trouble, too. So, 2 months later, he meets James Doxtator. And he is a Native American boy. He's only 14 years old. So, again, this is like another component. Like, clearly he's a pedophile.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's 14. Ugh. Which I know Dahmer's fairly young still, but still, this kid is 14. But here he is. I mean, he really looks young.
Oh, wow, yeah.
He looks like a little boy. So, but he is a prostitute. He took him home and he told him he'd pay him $50 to take nude pictures of him. And then Dahmer engaged in sexual activity with him, and then he drugged him, strangled him in the basement, and then dismembered the body about a week later, and then disposed of everything but the head, which he boiled, and he kept for a while before he destroyed it too, and disposed of it. Okay, so then Richard Guerrero is next. This is Richard. He looks kind of...
Another young... He looks pretty young.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he's getting into this swarthy sect.
Yeah. So he met him outside of a gay bar called the Phoenix in 88. He took him home to his grandmother's house and said he was going to pay him $50 just to spend the evening together. And I think that was how he did this a lot of the time, was like he picked people that, one, maybe weren't going to be missed, and two, were maybe in need of this cash and would like do whatever for it. But he drugged him and strangled him and then performed oral sex on the corpse.
Oh, wow. What a weird... That is probably the weirdest thing he's done so far, I think.
Yeah, because why?
Well, yeah, who was that for? You like a mushy dick in your mouth? A mushy dead dick, a cold dead dick in your mouth?
I don't know, man. I don't want to think about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost as bad as that Cadbury egg picture
Oh my god.
I was looking at earlier.
I don't know. But, so he dismembered the body and disposed of it, kept the head, which he pulverized and discarded later and after a few months. You gotta keep them for a little while to enjoy them.
Yeah, they're good. Boil them.
Yeah. So one of his victims got lucky when Dahmer's grandmother discovered that he had company. Mm-hmm. And Dahmer decided not to kill him and just took him to the hospital once he was unconscious because he had already drugged him. Right. But since Grandma knew he was down there, he had to come back out eventually. So, yeah, he took him to the hospital when because he was drugged. So Grandma's like, listen, I don't like you bringing home strange men at night, and since you came to stay, the basement and the garage really kind of stink, dude. You gotta go. Oh, there's a smell, man. So Dahmer finds a little one-bedroom apartment. He moves in on September 25th, the next day. He gets arrested for drugging and fondling a 13-year-old boy.
So he did jail time for that, right?
So in January, he's convicted of second-degree sexual assault and enticing a child for immoral purposes. He was supposedly just going to take nude pictures of the kid and pay him for it.
That's still jail time,
and he's sentenced. His sentencing is suspended until May, though. So on March 29th, he takes a 10-day break from work to move back into Grandma's.
Oh, wow.
Grandma, I'm back.
It's a stinky house, though.
I just molested a 13-year-old boy. So 2 months later after this, he meets Anthony Sears at a gay bar. He wasn't looking for a victim necessarily this time, but this poor guy was chatty, and he approached Dahmer on his own.
Can't help yourself.
Must have thought he was cute.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was only 24. He was an aspiring model. Dahmer really thought he was cute. So,
this guy's definitely getting a mushy dead blowjob.
Oh my god. What is wrong with you?
I have to try to have fun with the darkest shit you're bringing to my table, because what else am I gonna do?
I don't know.
You have told me of so many things. This is the most graphic episode.
Here's poor Anthony.
Oh yeah, he got that Jerry curl going.
Poor guy.
R.I.P. I hope he got a
Yeah.
mushy after death blowjob.
Jesus.
That's the best you can hope for in that
Well,
situation.
he took him to his grandma's house where they engaged in oral sex.
No.
But then he drugged him and strangled him.
Damn. What a fucking thing.
He put his body in Grandma's bathtub the next day and then decapitated him and flayed the body and pulverized the bones and disposed of it in the trash. But since he thought he was so attractive, he kept his head and his genitalia
Uh-oh.
and he preserved them in acetone. And then he kept them in his work locker until he moved the next year and took them with him.
Where was he working at this time? I forget.
The chocolate factory.
Oh my god. He had a head in there?
A head? Wasn't it a head?
Genitalia?
Head and dick, yeah.
You said dick. You never said dick. Well, the genitalia
Can I not
seems...
say
You can say whatever you want. You don't hear it a lot. The genitalia you could sneak in a lunchbox. You could pull it. You could get it in your pocket.
It's a hot dog.
It's just my grapes. But the head. How and why would you get that in there? Because even if they found the genital... Oh my god, Martha. Oh, that looks so fake, though.
It ain't. He preserved it in acetone. This is years old.
Oh my god, what did they do with it?
I don't know.
Is it still in evidence? It can't be.
Oh,
The
I
case
can't
is
imagine. I
closed.
don't know. I don't know what you would do with
What
that. I suppose
do-
they would cremate that.
If
I
anybody
imagine.
knows what
Yeah,
they
let us
do
know.
with evidence that is body parts,
Or yeah, or like, well, I assume they have to like.
like throw it in the
Yeah, they
in
have
the
to
body part
cremate it.
Trash. There's body part trash.
No.
There's
I
a
assume
whole
they cremate
separate
it.
body part trash that hospitals use.
Well, there is biohazardous stuff. Waste.
What happens to that? Where
don't
do
know.
the parts go? Because they don't let you keep your shit. If you
Well,
have to have a cancer
like I said,
removed, they don't let you keep your
because they send that to
tumor.
pathology. But anyway, that goes into waste. But like, if someone is like a Jane Doe or a John Doe, and they pass away, I think they cremate them.
What if you cut your finger off?
That's medical waste, I think.
So they just throw it in the trash, and then it goes to the medical waste facility, and then at the medical waste facility they put it in something like the dip from Roger Rabbit that just disintegrates it.
I don't know.
That just burns it all
I
away.
don't know what they do
They
with
just throw it in
medical
acid.
waste.
It's a big acid pool,
What
like
do
in
they
Batman.
do with medical waste,
In
guys? Tell
Batman,
us.
where the Joker falls in the acid, it's just like that, but they just throw fingers and
Fingers and
pancreases.
toes and pancreases.
What else do they take out?
Pancreati?
What do they take out? You can live without a pancreas.
Appendix.
You
Can't live without a pancreas.
Okay.
I mean, I suppose you could, but it'd be hard because that's what
Yeah.
insulin and all. Anyway, back on track.
Yeah. How
Lordy,
many more
where'd you
victims
get-
do we have?
You had 17 altogether,
Oh,
Aaron.
where are we at?
I don't know.
Man,
You lost me.
it's dense.
Oh, dang, where are we at now? You lost me.
The
Okay,
guy
so
with
he
the
was
severed
sentenced
head.
finally. Okay, so he was sentenced in May to 5 years of probation for molesting that 13-year-old boy, and 1 year in the House of Correction with a work release. And then he had to register as a sex offender, but he was paroled 2 months early, and then the probation started. And then he moved back in with Grandma for a while, but he pretty quickly moved into an apartment.
This whole time he's got a head and genitals in his work locker, and no one's come across it yet.
Right.
That's crazy.
And so then he moves into this apartment. It's in a high crime area, which I don't know why that's relevant, but I wrote it down anyway. So within a week, he had killed his 6th victim, which was 32-year-old Raymond Smith, and he was a prostitute. Excuse me. That he lured into his apartment with the promise of paid sex work, and then he drugged him and strangled him like he always does, and then he took photos of the body the next day in some suggested positions before dismembering him in the bathroom. Like, he literally, like, bent, like, put their legs under and, like, they bent at the knees, and then like their back was really arched. Like he did that a lot. Like he wanted to accentuate their physique. He said in one of the interviews, "Dude is nuts."
Yeah.
Nuts. Let me find a picture of Raymond here. Oop. Where you at, Raymond? Don't I have a picture of Raymond?
I'm sure we can find one.
I swear I had one. I was going to show you. I feel bad I forgot Raymond. Oh, there he is. I knew I had him. There he is. It's not a very good picture. Hard to see.
You know, and I think the moral of this whole thing is, legalize sex work. You know, get these people.
Legalize sex work, but like, there has to be a safer
It's gonna
way
happen.
than just going
It's
back
gonna
to some
happen.
creep's apartment.
It's gonna happen anyways. So why not have these
Right.
people who need these and want these positions?
Right.
Let them have a safe place to do it, and like testing and stuff. I don't know. It makes sense. It's gonna happen.
So he basically dissolved this guy's flesh and body in acid, except for the skull, which he later spray painted
What?
and put in a filing cabinet. Yep, and then just a week later, he had a seventh he would have had a seventh victim, but he got, he had his drink, and then the drugged drink, and he drank the wrong one.
So he drugged himself?
Yeah, and
And
sedated himself, and he woke up $300 poorer and missing his watch. He never reported the incident, but he did tell his probation officer that he'd been robbed.
Oh.
Yeah. So Edward Smith was his next victim. And that was in June of 1990. He drugged and strangled him just like the other ones. And this time, though, he put the skeleton in the freezer, hoping it wouldn't retain any moisture, which obviously that didn't hold true because you're freezing the moisture. Where's it gonna go? Anyway, so he dissolved it in acid months later and blew up the skull in the oven.
Where
Dude
the fuck
was not
is he
smart.
getting all of this
Dude
acid
was not
at?
smart.
Smart enough to get acid? Where the
It's
fuck?
if
if I was put upon,
can't remember
if
what
if,
that
if some people came in
Muriatic
here,
acid.
if people came in here with guns, pointed them to you and the kids' heads, and said, "Get me some acid, buddy," I eat no matter what kind of acid it is, the drug acid or the kind that you melt bodies in. I would be hard pressed to find it.
Right, I know. I don't know. I assume it's something that you can get. It's readily available to the public, obviously. But anyway, there's Edward Smith. That he blew up the poor guy's skull in the oven.
He's really got a look he's going for.
Yeah,
it
he
seems
sure
like.
does, doesn't he? And then Ernest Miller is next. He was a 22-year-old Chicago native. He was supposedly going to his Dahmer's apartment so he could listen to his heart and stomach for $50. Like, Dahmer wanted to listen to this guy's heart and stomach and was going to pay him $50.
You never do that.
Like, listen, what was this guy thinking? That's what I mean. Like, they had to be desperate for money.
I mean,
I don't know.
because anything else. Dude says he was to pay for a blowjob. That's a reasonable,
and
regular thing.
Again, Dahmer tried to perform oral sex on him, and then the guy was like, "No, that'll be extra cash, thank you." And Dahmer's like, "I'll drug you," but he only had 2 sleeping pills, so he had to slash his carotid with the knife that he usually used to dissect the victims. Of course, he posed the body again for pictures before dismembering it in the bathtub, like he likes to do. He said he repeatedly kissed and talked to the severed head, though, during the process.
Oh,
I'm
nice.
sure that made Ernest feel better.
So,
Wrapped
like,
the heart, biceps, and portions of the legs in plastic bags and put them in the fridge for later. And I think this is where he starts. And he
Getting
doesn't
sloppy.
necessarily... No. He doesn't necessarily say this is what happens. Because he says that he later boiled the flesh and organs in Soilex, which was like an acidy, and then lightly bleached the dried skeleton to preserve it. but he kept the head in the fridge for a while after he stripped its flesh and painted it and coated it with enamel. So that's two of them that he's got.
This guy's
painted.
just got fucking heads and body parts
Right.
all over. By the time
But
they
I
catch
think
him,
when he's boiling this stuff or he's bringing it out of the freezer, I think he is eating it at this point too. And he said that that was a way that he felt like they were a part of him forever.
Yeah, well, I mean, by the time they arrest this dude, they must have had like just a U-Haul they had to bring in for all the evidence.
Well, and that's the thing. What was it I watched that they said what do they call that? And they come in, hazmat team that came in to remove this stuff that they were taking out that had acid in it. They had two guys come in that were from this hazmat place, and they were like brand new on the job, really young guys, and they had no idea what they were doing. And walking into this, and it's like, you know,
oh yeah,
they're
that
just
seems
kids,
like an
really.
entry-level job.
Yeah, I was just like, I can't imagine that being like, can you imagine if that was like your first week on the job and you have to go to Dahmer's apartment?
Could you imagine if it was your 50th week on the job?
Yeah, good point.
Nobody wants that job, and the people
No.
that have that job probably deserve to get paid more. I don't know.
Right, no shit. So David Thomas was next on September 24th. He was 22. He met him at the Grand Avenue Mall. They were supposed to go to Dahmer's house for drinks and then possibly for Dahmer to take some photos. Maybe pay him for those. Maybe pay him for those photos. But guess what he did?
I bet he drugged them and strangled them, and then he did something really fucking weird with their body afterwards.
Really close. So he did drug him, but he decided then that he wasn't attracted to this guy.
Uh-oh.
But he decided he had to kill him anyway.
Well, you got to.
So he never retained any of the body parts this time, but he did take photos, which was actually a good thing because that was used to ID him later. It was almost like he didn't even care about this one guy. I don't know what happened, and I don't know why, because he looks a lot like the other guys that he had found so attractive. So I don't know. I don't know. So then he went 5 months without killing anybody.
Wow. Did he get a chip?
I don't think so. I guess he was depressed and suicidal.
It's my 5-month chip.
Said he was suicidal, and he had to do with his sexuality, money trouble, being alone. And that was something that he said that being lonely was something that he did feel all the time.
You know, the problem is he keeps killing everybody that he
Well,
might have.
and
He
that
had
was the
chances.
thing. He said he was lonely and that he wanted to keep them with him forever, but he only wanted them there for his sexual needs, and he didn't want them to talk or move or do anything else, and he didn't want to have to take care of them. That's all he wanted them for. He wasn't that's not loneliness. That's perversion. But he did try unsuccessfully in this time to lure men to his home. They just didn't go. So, 91, February, he meets 17-year-old Curtis Straughter at a bus stop. And he lured him into his apartment, telling him again that he was going to pay him for nude pictures and sex, and drugged him and strangled him, dismembered him, kept his skull, hands, and genitals, and took photos of the whole process. So then it was Errol Lindsay right there, and he lured him into his apartment where he drilled a hole in his head, and this was new.
Well, it's always something new.
And that he drugged him first. Jeez. So, and then he put in hydrochloric acid in the hole.
Well, this guy's still alive?
Yes. And he actually woke up after this. Said he had a headache. No shit. I'd have a hell of a headache too if I had a hole bored into my skull. Acid poured in.
Wow.
So he drugged him and strangled him again, and then killed him. Decapitated him and kept the skull. And then he tried keeping the flayed skin in a salt water solution, but it didn't keep, and he had to get rid of it. So at this point, he's living in this apartment, you know, and neighbors are like, damn,
It stinks.
It fucking stinks. So, let alone all this chainsaw noise and falling
Hammering
objects.
bones.
I'm like, what the hell? Nobody reports this shit? So, but he claims on 2 separate occasions when they came and asked what the hell was going on, he said, oh, my freezer broke and a lot of meat spoiled. And then on another occasion, he's like, oh, I had a whole bunch of tropical fish in my aquarium and they all died, and that's what the smell is. What?
That's like real lackluster police work if they didn't investigate a little bit.
Right. Oh, every time I
Especially the second time, you know?
Every time I click that button, it takes me back to the top of the page. Okay. So, his next victim on May 26, 91 is, I'm going to butcher this poor kid's name, is a 14-year-old named Conorak Synthasymphony, I think. He's a Lao teen, and he is the younger brother of the 13-year-old boy that Dahmer was convicted of molesting.
Oh, really?
So this is that boy's younger brother, 14 years old, and again, he looks like a little boy.
Mm-hmm.
He looks like a little boy. Okay, so he convinces this boy, who's initially hesitant, to come to his apartment to pose for photos. He drugs him and then performs oral sex on him, and then he drills a hole in his head and injected hydrochloric acid directly into the frontal lobe. Apparently it takes him a while for him to become unconscious, so Dahmer took him to the bedroom where 31-year-old Tony Hughes has laid for 3 days after Dahmer murdered him. And then pretty soon Conorak is unconscious, and so Dahmer's drinking and he passes out. When he wakes up in the morning, he finds that Conorak is outside, naked, with 3 women who have called the cops.
Oh.
He tells the cops that Conorak is his 19... Now, would you believe that boy is 19?
No.
19-year-old boyfriend, and that he's just drunk too much, and that's why he's...
Doesn't he have a hole in his head?
Well, I mean, I guess he's bleeding, but I suppose there's enough hair to cover it. I don't know. That they had a fight, that he had been drinking, and that this was a common thing, and the 3 women kind of protest, but the officers are just like, cover the boy up and take him back to the apartment, and Dahmer shows him like the semi-nude pics that he took of this kid, and the officer's like, it smelled like shit in the apartment, but they didn't see anything out of the norm, so they left. So as soon as they leave, he injects more hydrochloric acid, and this time it kills the boy. And so Dahmer takes the next day off and dismembers both bodies and keeps both skulls. So then he goes to Chicago, and he meets 20-year-old Matt Turner at a bus stop. He agrees to go to Milwaukee with Dahmer for a pro photo shoot. I don't know.
Does he have a portfolio?
I don't know. I don't know how you keep convincing people with that story.
The thing that's funny about it is that he is kind of doing shit that photographers do, but with bodies. Like, you know how photographers, like, that develop their own film, they're always trying different techniques, different new things. He's kind of doing that, but I don't think he's ever taken a photo, right? Does he?
Oh, he takes photos every time.
Oh, I mean...
He takes Polaroids of every dismemberment, every
aside
body.
from that, like...
But he does pose the bodies.
Like,
but no, I don't think he's
to get
taken
somebody
other photos.
involved in a professional photo shoot,
like, I don't
think you'd have
he's...
to have a picture you could show them.
Yeah, I don't think... I don't know, maybe he does. But he gets this guy to his apartment and drugs and strangles him, dismembers him, puts his head and internal organs in separate bags in the freezer. This guy was never, ever, ever reported even missing. And that's another thing. Like, it just seems like that's... Like, he knew... And this is Matt Turner right here. Poor guy.
Yeah, you know, if you are a male prostitute, be careful who you go home with.
If you're
You
a
know?
prostitute, just be careful.
Because they will drug you, and then they will
Strangle
strangle
you
you,
and do terrible things to your body.
Yeah, make a lamp out of your spine or whatever.
Yeah.
I guess he's not that creative.
No, well,
he's not Ed Gein.
Well, we'll get to that later, though. But this guy, so Dahmer, 5 days later, brings Jeremiah Weinberger, who's 23, this guy right here.
Mm-hmm.
He meets him in a brings him back to his apartment from a bar in Chicago. They're going to have sex, but he drugs him, strangles him, dismembers him, and puts his head and heart in the fridge and his skeleton in the freezer. So, and then on the 19th, which is like 2 weeks later, he's fired. So he decides to lure 25-year-old Joseph Bradhoft, this guy here, who totally looks like none of the other guys, to his apartment, where he strangled him, and then he just left his body covered with a sheet on his bed for 2 days. Surprisingly enough, maggots found their way to the body. Shocker.
Yeah.
But old Jeffrey just washes them off and puts the head in the fridge. He later acidifies the torso and the bodies of the 2 other kills from the previous month. So Dahmer comes up to a group of 3 guys on July 22nd. Okay, and he's like, I've got $100 if any of you guys want to go to my apartment and pose for nude photos and drink beer and hang out.
Oh, how do you turn that down?
Well, 32-year-old Tracy Edwards is like, sure, I'll go. As soon as he enters the apartment, he's like, what is going on? It smells awful. He's got hydrochloric acid out in boxes on the floor, too, and so that's, like, freaking him out. And before he knows it, Dahmer handcuffs one of his wrists and says that he wants him in the bedroom for photos. There's new posters of men on the walls, and The Exorcist 3 is playing, and that was one of these things that he really liked. He loved that movie. He liked to watch that, or have that playing a lot of the time when he was dismembering people or killing people.
Don't tell me that. That's a great movie.
And then there's a big blue drum in the corner, and then Dahmer pulls out a knife and wants him to pose, and he's like threatening him with this knife, and he listens to his heart by like laying his head on his chest and tells him he wants to eat his heart. And then Dahmer seems to have like a little psychotic break where he starts to like rock back and forth and chant while watching TV.
Oh, Jesus. Just like the character in the movie. Maybe that's what he identified with, because there's a part where, like, in that movie, notoriously, they had to switch actors. Like, they wanted to have the guy from the original Exorcist come in. His name's actually Jason Miller. But they had already hired Brad Dourif, the guy who does Chucky's voice.
Okay.
So, like, in that movie, they had them both play the same character, but they kind of wash in and out of each other. Like, the one character is like in the head of the other one, or like possessing the other one. I don't know exactly. It's very hard to, but I could see.
I've never seen it, but that was his favorite movie.
Fucker.
So Edwards is trying to play this whole situation the right way and figure out how he can get out. So he's telling Dahmer that they're friends and he wants to stay, but in his mind he's like, I'm going to jump out a window or I'm going to run out the door as soon as I have the chance. So he finds a chance when Dahmer seems like distracted, and Edwards punches him in the face and knocks him off balance and runs. And then he flags down 2 police officers and tells them what's going on. So they're like, okay. So they accompany him back to the apartment because they were just going to like unlock his handcuffs, but their keys didn't work. So they go back to the apartment to get keys. And Dahmer admits to handcuffing him, but doesn't really have an explanation about it. So he tells the officers that the keys are in his bedroom on the table by his bed. And the officer goes in, and I don't think there were any keys. I think I remember the investigator saying he didn't have keys, he didn't need keys, he'd just cut their hands off when time came.
Oh, yeah.
So, but anyway, he notices that there's all these Polaroids in this open top drawer of this dresser. And they're all of these bodies in, different points during dismemberment.
Wow.
And he's like, cuff him.
Right.
So, and Jeffrey Dahmer's like, for what I did, I should be dead. Like, yeah.
So after this, he's not free after this point, right?
No.
Oh man, I'll tell you what. The
No,
whole
because
time
now they find there's a severed head in the bottom shelf of the fridge. There's 4 total severed heads altogether. 7 skulls, blood drippings on a tray from inside the fridge, 2 hearts, a portion of an arm muscle, an entire
Jesus.
torso in the freezer with a bag of human organs and flesh, 2 entire skeletons, a pair of severed hands, 2 preserved penises, a mummified scalp, and there were 3 dismembered torsos and acid in the drum in the bedroom. And then they also found 74 Polaroids of Dahmer's victims in stages of dismemberment.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
Detective Patrick Kennedy, in 91 on July 23rd, questions Dahmer about the murders and what they found at the apartment. And then Detective Patrick Murphy also questioned him later. So there were 60 hours of interviewing, and he waived his right to a lawyer, confessed to having murdered 16 men in Wisconsin and then Stephen Hicks in Ohio. And then, of course, we've talked about the necrophilia. He admits to having sex with the viscera while he was dismembering some of the victims.
Ugh.
He also ate some of the hearts, livers, biceps, and portions of thighs. He said it was an incessant and never-ending desire to be with someone at whatever cost. Someone good-looking, really nice-looking. It just filled my thoughts all day long. He said he was going to keep the skulls and the skeletons of his victims and said he was going to build an altar and put the skulls on display. The altar, of course, was dedicated to himself. Duh. A place for meditation. And here's his drawing of what it would look like. Painted skeletons on the end, a big black table, big lamp with globe lights, blue curtains, wall plaques, skeletons.
And all that work, and you can't show anybody.
Right.
That's the thing. It was all for him.
It's just for meditation.
You need a space.
Right. So he's charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder, but was charged with the other 11 Wisconsin murders by August 22nd, and then by September 17th, he was charged with Hicks's murder in Ohio. Because they found all those bone fragments in the woods behind his house. So they never charged Dahmer with the attempted murder of Edwards.
The one that got him
The
arrested?
one that got away, yeah. Or Twomey. And that was because he couldn't remember it, and there was no actual physical evidence. He pled guilty but insane to 15 counts of murder. So his trial begins in 92, January, at the end of January, and the defense argues that Dahmer's necrophilia drove him to the murder, and 2 defense expert witnesses diagnosed Dahmer with necrophilia, and a third diagnoses him with necrophilia, schizotypal personality disorder, alcohol dependence, and a psychotic disorder. So schizotypal disorder is like paranoia, social anxiety, derealization, transient psychosis, and unconventional beliefs. They thought he had a borderline personality disorder, which was like a long-term pattern of unstable relationships, distorted sense of self, and strong emotional reactions. Often these people engage in self-harm and dangerous behavior. So the prosecution argued that he preferred live sex partners, but wanted someone that wasn't going to have rational thought or have needs that he had to attend to, and also argued that he made sure to hide. They argued that he made sure to hide all this behavior, so he obviously knew it was wrong. Right. The prosecution had witnesses say that he was sane. So
that whole thing's weird to me anyways. Like, clearly he's insane. I mean, sane
that's
people...
That's not sane activity, but...
Sane people don't do that.
He still knew it was wrong.
But what do you do? Like,
right.
All they can really do...
I think that's what the defining term is did he know it was wrong? And he did. So one independent doctor said that he was sane and that he had one said he had a personality disorder and was OCD. He was decided to be sane, and for the first 2 counts, he was sentenced to life plus 10 years, with the remaining 13 counts carrying a mandatory sentence of life imprisonment plus 70 years. The death penalty wasn't an option because Wisconsin had abolished it in 1853. His dad and stepmom got a 10-minute private meeting after this sentencing before he was transferred to the Columbia Correctional Institute in Portage. And then 3 months later, he was extradited to Ohio to be tried for Stephen Hicks's murder, which lasted 45 minutes, and he was sentenced to a 16th life term.
Mm-hmm.
So his first year of imprisonment was in solitary confinement because they feared for his safety. So then they transferred him to a less secure unit, and this was all done with his consent. This is what he wanted. He didn't want to be in solitary confinement. He asked for a Bible after his confessions, and he turned his eye upon the Lord. He was a born-again Christian.
Really?
That's what he said.
Oh, Lord. That's like if a computer hacker like got caught doing all the craziest shit you could do with a computer, and then when they're in jail, they're like, well, I think I might pick up some of these programming books and just check out and see what that's all about. Maybe take a computer class.
No.
The Bible isn't going to save you after you do
No,
all this.
I know.
I don't know. Whatever you want to believe, I guess.
All right. July 94, Osvaldo Durruti, which was an inmate, tried to slash his throat with a shank, which was basically a razor and a toothbrush, but he only received superficial cuts. But in November 28th of 1994, Dahmer was on work detail with Jesse Anderson and Christopher Scarver, which were both inmates, and they were left unsupervised for 20 minutes. And in 20 minutes was all Scarver needed to severely bludgeon Dahmer in the head and face with a metal bar, and rammed his head into the wall repeatedly, and he was pronounced dead at the hospital an hour later. The other guy was also beaten with a metal bar, and he died 2 days later.
Why?
Garver said God had told him to kill the men.
Maybe he did.
I mean, Meh. And then, like I said, Dahmer's father wrote a book called A Father's Story and donated portions of the proceeds to the victims' families. His mom, Joyce, died of cancer in 2000. She did try to commit suicide prior to that at least once, though. And then his younger brother had to change his name.
Yeah, he would have to.
So, yeah.
Dahmer is like Hitler. You can't keep that last name.
Right. So, Stephen Hicks, Stephen Twomey, James Dockstader, Anthony Sears, Raymond Smith, Edward Smith, Ernest Miller, David Thomas, Curtis Straughter, Errol Lindsay, Tony Hughes, Conorak Synthasymphony, Matt Turner, Jeremiah Weinberger, Oliver Lacey, Joseph Braidhoft, Richard Guerrero, all killed by Dahmer.
Jeffrey. Telling you what. Always be wary of Jeffries. You never can tell.
Right, I know a couple weirdos named Jeffrey.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, when you go through these stories, I have such anxiety up until the point to where they get caught. But all these stories are old as fuck. I hope you don't ever do a new one that is like. I mean, I guess you have done that one, the Daybell.
Right.
That they're still existent, right?
Yeah, and they still haven't
But they're caught.
Charged them. But
so
yeah,
if you ever do one that's like, they still don't have this guy, I'll be like.
I don't know. I kind of want to do one on that story I was telling you about the other day that. Both the mom and the son are missing, but they went missing 5 years apart.
Yeah, that is weird. I don't know. It's up to you. Whatever you want to do.
I know.
I like that. I think you should do the one with the lobster hands guy. The
lobster hand guy. Okay.
Or I heard of one not too long ago that was really weird. Can't think of what it was.
I don't know. I just hope it's not just his lobster hands that makes it interesting, because otherwise.
Yeah, you don't have 17 kills.
I don't need that, but...
No.
I got lots of pictures for you, though.
Yeah.
You know, there's those poor kids taking that barrel out.
Oh my god. Yeah.
3 torsos
You
in
said
there.
that was the first day on the job.
I don't know if it was their first day, but they were young guys. That's new. There's his apartment.
It's so creepy.
Right? I don't know. There's his fridge. With every, like...
Oh, you know the one I saw? Vice just did a a documentary, or I saw clips from it. He had a nickname, Pazuzu or something like that.
Yeah. He changed his name to Pazuzu.
They were going through his house on Vice.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was
They've done a whole series on
crazy
that.
shit.
That dude was nuts.
Yeah.
I
But
guess that,
evidently
like,
he
you could
was-
go to that house and do whatever you wanted. You could poop right there if you wanted to and smear it all over the walls. He didn't care.
Well, his mom was living with him or something.
I don't know.
So like she had it was still a messy house, but it was messy room, but the whole rest of the house was like condemnable, you know, like it was terrible.
I didn't realize.
I
his
really
mom lived with
hate
him.
if we could all just rally together and not do weird, gross, murderous, terrible shit anymore. I would feel a lot better about dying when I'm older and leaving my kids to walk around this earth.
Yeah,
It's
come
fucking
on.
terrible.
People suck.
There is like, can we just knock it the fuck off? Like in Jeffrey Dahmer's case, everything he did was generated from his penis. They could have
Right.
probably solved it if they just would have, you know, got rid of that thing. You know,
I know.
well, before he stuck that nasty little bird in all
Yeah.
sorts of places. But you know,
Yeah.
what do you do though? You set up a death penalty, and then you gotta
Well, and like I said,
you have to hire a murderer to kill people.
they had already abolished the death penalty in Wisconsin,
Yeah,
so they didn't
but
even
still-
have the chance to be
so-
up for that.
So
They
I
did
mean,
tear down
the
the
best
apartment
thing,
building where
and
he had lived.
I think it's so terrible that in the places where there is the death penalty, that they have to, somebody has to fill out
Right.
an application to be a murderer.
Well,
and then
and like
go do
that's
that job.
it's done all like they have a regular job too. That's the
Right.
thing. It's like a doctor that has a regular job, but this is something that they have to do, and they can't tell people that this is what they do.
Right. And I think you're just creating another crazy person there by.
Because I mean, it's not a
that's
job
not
that you're going to be
normal.
doing often.
But it's not normal. If you have to do it at all, it's not normal. Just
Right.
like carrying body parts out of a fucking murderer's
Right,
house.
who does
That's
that?
not a normal job. That's
Well, and they didn't know that was in there. They didn't know what was in that
Still.
container, but I mean, they had a good idea.
you know, even no matter what
They
that
didn't-
job deals with, it's not pleasant.
Right.
But yeah, if you don't, I don't think that it's right to really just kill somebody, because you have to. If it was somehow where you could be like, you are sentenced to death, and then they go off into a building and that building kills them or something.
Or like they have to do it themselves.
Yeah, but
Swallow
or
pill.
you know, like we could just do Escape from LA, where we just cut a chunk of the country up, drop all the crazy psychos, murderers, rapists, insane people in there, and then just leave them in there, and then they're locked in there forever,
I
and
just
they have
feel
to
like that's not
figure it
any
out
better than
themselves.
Those people.
Figure it out themselves, because some people really are not.
Savable.
You can't rehab them.
Right.
You can't. They're not going to change. Jeffrey
And he
Dahmer
said
would
that
never
he-
have been different.
And he said that. He said that it was not. He couldn't control it. He said that it
Yeah.
was not. He would have kept doing it if he hadn't gotten caught. He would have kept killing people.
Yeah, and that's like, you know, think about how quickly people will kill an animal if it's not acting right.
I
I,
know.
mean, look how quick they killed old Yeller, and he was a
know.
good dog up until the end.
You know.
So
Well, and how many times do you hear in the news someone shakes their baby
Mhm.
because they cried?
Yeah,
Which is what a baby does. That's what they do. That's their job. That's how they communicate. And that's what
yeah. I
they
mean,
and that's their job as a parent, to care for them
But
when they
we
cry and they shake them to death.
I don't know how much you benefit from taking someone who, even if they are crazy or not insane or whatever, they can't be put in prison. They put them in a mental hospital. That's
Right.
not really doing anything, because they're not rehabbing that person. They might be able to study their brain, study how they think,
I mean, I suppose it depends
Mindhunter,
on what you're
the whole thing.
rehabbing, but murder, I
But-
don't know.
but really,
Do you ever want to take the
What do you-
chance that a murderer isn't rehabbed either? You know, like,
no.
like that just doesn't seem like like a situation that has an ending that's...
Because then you know what happens? You fucking take it for granted. Then you got yourself a Michael Myers situation. He breaks out of the penitentiary.
I mean, I feel differently about things like that. Centoya Jackson, that she murdered the guy that... I don't know. She was a teen... I mean, it was paid sex work, but it was not willing paid sex work. You know what I mean? She was being forced. She was trafficked. And then they said that, you know, she was going to spend forever in jail, which she wasn't.
Yeah, let's stop doing that too, by the way. Since we're collectively, I mean, I'm just going to speak for everybody. We've all decided we're not going to kill or hurt people anymore. We're also not going to sex traffic. Because that'd be good. Does that seem darker to you than murder? Because it does to me.
Well, because there's no end.
And it's such a fucked up thing to do. Yeah. I mean, murder's fucked up. Don't get me wrong. It is terrible. All the things Jeffrey Dahmer did. And I'm not saying that sex traffic is worse than that, necessarily.
It's just that if you're, you know, when you're murdered, if you're drugged and strangled while you're drugged...
Yeah, it can go any which way after that. Out. You might get one of them mush mouth blowjobs, or you might end up burned up in acid.
There's something wrong with you.
I have to make some humor out of it a little bit. But
yeah, with sex trafficking, it's a thing that just goes on forever, and it's repeated trauma over and 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 over again.
And you know what? It's crazy when a woman is like mixed up in it, like at the top of the whole thing.
Oh well, yeah. I think like that's like I don't know.
You think there always has to be a woman? Do you think there always has to be a woman involved?
I don't know. My only exposure to it is the one Grey's Anatomy episode or two, and you know the 1 hour of continuing education my mom gets that I may help with every year.
Cat's out of the bag. But no, I think that like it can't just be all men. There always is a woman involved in it. Like whether it was that Nexium cult, there was a woman that was pretty high up in that, or anytime how many times do you see a woman was pimping out her daughter or whatever?
Well, you see that crap all the time. Yeah.
But anyways, we should wrap this up. Do you have anything else you want to say? Do you want to?
No.
No? Okay, well, what's our catchphrase? Don't kill anybody?
Yeah.
Don't kill anybody. Don't sex traffic anybody. Don't smash any mice. Don't
let your kids smash mice.
Don't give any post-mortem mush-mouth blowjobs.
Oh, God.
You can receive them if you're lucky. But anyways, that's enough filth talk for this time. Join us next time on the all-new, filthy Murder Fluent.